It was so great. I can't even describe how wonderful it was to find her. I had prayed for her so much during her life and just always wondered what she looked like and how tall she was, and imagined if I ever passed her on the street or anything like that.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. And welcome to episode 166. And today I am speaking with Nikee. Hi, Nikee.
Hi, Lily. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, this is so great of you. I was really looking forward to this all day. I don't even know what part of the country you're in. Where are you from?
Well, I am currently living in Utah. I've lived a lot of places and I've moved a lot in my lifetime, but I am currently residing in Utah.
Beautiful. I went out there on a road trip during the pandemic. It was absolutely gorgeous there.
It is a stunning place. You just can't beat those Wasatch Mountain ranges.
Oh, wow. Are you anywhere near Moab?
No, that's southern. I'm more kind of in the middle near Salt Lake area, a little bit north of there.
Lucky you. Sounds
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you.
All right. So I think we were talking about being a little emotional before we got started.
Yeah, I would say I am. On average, I'm pretty open and I can tell my story anywhere, but this makes it more real and tangible, I think, when you do it in this format. So, thank you to all the MPEs that have gone before me. During my time and listening over the years, a year and a half, I guess, close to that, I just have really appreciated having them with me. So, everybody that's gone before me, thank you.
That's so sweet. Okay, Miss Nikee, let's get into your background story and let's find out about your family of origin, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
All right. I was born and raised in Idaho. It's about 3 hours from here in a special little place called the Magic Valley. The Magic Valley is made up of several tiny little towns. So everyone knows everyone, which makes my MPE story a little bit more complicated for me because of the feelings that you have about your small town. I was born and raised in one of the towns. My mom and dad had been married, and it gets complicated kind of right from the beginning. I had an older brother. He was about a year and a half, 2 years older than I was. Somewhere between, I was born in January 1973, and somewhere between then and March of 74, my mom had an affair and divorced my dad and remarried. So she was remarried in March of 74. So it was pretty quick and I was very young. I don't know. I asked a lot of questions when I was older, but the questions are usually, they're not avoided, but they're short answers and not really detailed. There's not a lot of detail in the story. So I was kind of blank. I do know that they split my brother and I. So my brother stayed with my dad and I went with my mom. Of course, when I was so young, I didn't know any different, but I grew up thinking that my stepdad kind of was my dad. So I think at some point you figure you're kind of an MPE twice. At least I make that joke because I grew up with my stepdad. And then at some point along the way, I probably realized that I had another dad that was my birth certificate father. So it was great. I lived on a 180-acre farm, though I couldn't complain. I rode a lot of horses. We had a lot of crops, a lot of rural, it was a rural community. My stepdad's mom lived half a mile up the road, so I got to ride to grandma's house often and spend time with her. my parents were into rodeo quite a bit, so and were pretty dominant in rodeo. By the time I was 10, I was the Idaho Cowboys Association Rookie of the Year and was competing alongside older women such as my mother. My mother and I placed first and second in the rodeo circuit that year, and I was the youngest, and I think I still hold the record of being the youngest Rookie of the Year for that association. So I've been scouted even in like 12, 13 years old for potentially rodeoing for the local college that's there. And I was a good athlete in basketball and things like that. When I was 10, I was given up for adoption by my birth certificate father, and my stepdad adopted me. So that changed my birth certificate. So when I look at my birth certificate, there's my stepdad's name and not my real dad's name. And that didn't, when I was 10, it didn't really bother me. But when I got to be about, 12 or 13, you just had those feelings of why would somebody give you away? I didn't really understand because he kept my brother. And so that, was difficult and would become difficult for me in years to come. I think as I matured into my 20s, that, emotion was just kind of difficult. You learn to forgive people, but it was still a little difficult. When I was 14, my mom divorced it's really hard, the terms, because now he's my stepfather birth certificate father. And we moved about 20 miles to the next little small town where she had grown up. Her sister, my Aunt Linda, lived there, and her dad, my grandpa, lived there. And I spent the next 12 years, and she had gone to school in that next small town that was over. I don't know if I should give this town's name, so I won't, because it is so small and want to protect people as best I can for confidentiality. But within 6 months of her divorcing my birth certificate stepfather, I was pregnant. I took the divorce, I think, a little hard. Your life changes quite a bit after a divorce. And so the decision was made to emancipate me so that I could marry the baby's dad, who was 19. So there was a 5-year difference between the two of us. We ended up getting married in Christmas of my freshman high school year, and we went on to be married for 6.5 years. During that time, I reconnected with my original birth certificate father because he worked in the small town that we had moved to. He, again, everybody lived within 20, 30 minutes of each other the whole time I grew up. And so we reconnected. We stayed connected for a while. I left Idaho when I was 24. Skipping back just a little bit. So I'd gotten married. He and I had been married 6.5 years, and we had 2 children. So then we ended up getting divorced in 1994. In 1996, I was remarried and had another child. And then I left Idaho in 1999. From there, we moved all over. He was in the military, and we went to different places. That marriage didn't last either. We were married for 11 years, and I'm going to only say why it didn't last because that will come into play with what I had experienced in my life to the point when I found out I was an NPE. So he had a sexual addiction, and he had several marital affairs. And out of the 11 years, we spent 7 years either in pastoral or professional counseling. And so in that, you got to deal with a lot of the childhood adoption, just all those things that make you who you are in a good way or a bad way. You address your feelings. The grief of having one failed marriage and then struggling with the second failed marriage. And there was a lot of grief involved. So we were divorced in 2009. And that was a very traumatic divorce for me, I would say, because I had fought really long and hard through counseling to try to preserve the marriage. I didn't want another divorce. And it still chokes me up a little bit because I fought really, really hard. People thought I was crazy. in 2010, that young little baby that I'd gotten pregnant with had went off into the military, and he was killed in Afghanistan. So there'd just been a lot of trauma, and but I'm an overcomer. My name is Nikee, and I'm the goddess. Nikee is a short term for Nike, and that's the goddess of victory. So I can tell you I've overcome a lot of things. Life seemed to smooth out a little bit after those couple of years, and that was nice. I got some peace back, some stability. My youngest son was involved in swimming, and it was good. My daughter, she did really good, and they were just all great. I have 3 children, and they're just wonderful and supportive and loving. Fast forward to 2020, I had met another gentleman, and that year we ended up getting married. And I need to back up just a minute to when I did get pregnant, and this is kind of important. When I did get pregnant as a teenager, one of the community ladies that was trying to console me in my mistake of becoming pregnant had said to me, well, your mom had a baby when she was 17 and gave her up for adoption. And I remember feeling very shocked about that. Because my mom and I were so close. We spent, that rodeoing that we did, we were together all the time, and we laughed together. We competed against each other. So for me, I thought I knew everything about her. So when I had learned that I had a half sister out in the world somewhere, I wanted to know more. And so anytime I would ask questions about that, how old were you? Who was it with? All the questions that you ask in a normal wanting to know. She was just very vague, and she would get upset and angry. And I understood that, it's not a proud moment for her. And I'm sure it was challenging, and the things that she faced too. So I just left it alone. I prayed for that little girl a lot. I did find out that it was a little girl, and I loved her, and it was wonderful. But in 2020, she came back into our lives through DNA. So she had done a DNA test in search of finding her biological parents, and connected with a third cousin of ours, and was able to use the search angels that a lot of us are familiar with in the MPE world to find us. And so she'd written a letter to my aunt and to my mom, the typical adoption letter, like, hey, I'm just looking for some health information, and I think you're my parent. And we confirmed that it was my mom, and it was so great. I can't even describe how wonderful it was to find her. I had prayed for her so much during her life, and just always wondered what she looked like and how tall she was, and, imagined what it would be. Imagined if I ever passed her on the street or anything like that. So finding Diane was amazing, and I'm so thankful for her. Sorry.
Oh, please, you're fine. Oh.
Yeah, it was just great. My mom was a little bit reserved, she's a little bit more withdrawn probably than I was, but if she would not have come with me, I would have went and met Diane together, but we did that together too. We flew out to meet Diane, and we did it together. And so we were, very close. So in the summer of 2021, my original birth certificate father, who I had, we did Christmas. I had moved to Alaska when I left Idaho. So again, I was not around every day in that small town area anymore. When I would come home, I'd make sure that I'd see everybody, but I was, they weren't part of my everyday life, and I wasn't part of their everyday life. But in 2021, he said, I need to sit down and talk to you about my estate. I'm getting older, and I need to do some planning. I said, okay. And so I made time for that, and we sat down, and he said, you haven't been around as much as your brother, and so I don't feel like you're entitled to half of my estate. And, he goes, Buck's been around and he's been with me since he was little. And I remember, you accept what people say because it's your state. You can do with it what you want. You respect that individuality. But I remember also feeling once again like, wow, it wasn't my fault that my parents split us up when I was a little girl. It wasn't it's not my fault that I've been away, and all of a sudden you're just once again saying to me, I'm not as important to you as a daughter, I'm not important to you is what I heard.
Yeah.
It was just tough. And also around that same time, and I can't remember if it was the same week or not, I had met with my brother and he had told me a story that my dad and his brother, my uncle, had went to lunch together. And during the lunch, they were discussing the state, and the uncle said to my dad, well, everybody in the valley knows Nikee's not yours. I don't know why you can't accept it. And I was like, and even Buck and we look a lot alike. And I said, but I am taller than everybody in my family. And I remember asking about that when I was a little girl. I was like, why do you think I'm so much taller? I'm taller than my dad, my brother, my mom. I'm taller than a lot of my cousins. And one other thing that always kind of stood out to me was my body composition as a woman. I'm the only one in my family that gains weight in her hips and thighs, whereas they gain weight kind of around their midsection and their legs stay really slim. And I remember those are the only two oddities, but those are things that, I didn't, stay or ponder on for a long time. But when this comment was made from the uncle and it was relayed back to me, on top of the fact that I'm being told that I'm not as eligible for for the inheritance, I just was, so I'd asked my dad, well, let's go get, I don't know why Uncle Ralph would say something like that, but let's go get a DNA test. And he was like, no. I remember I asked him 3 times. I'm like, please, let's just go get it. Why not? We knew that my mom had that affair quite soon after I'd been born. You just don't know what people do in life. Now somebody's questioning it. I'm all in. Nobody else was all in. I called my mom. I remember leaving and I called my mom at some point and I was just, not unloading, but downloading, sharing my heartache with what he had said and where things were going. And I remember saying to her, and I'm going to just say the birth certificate stepdad, but I said, is the birth certificate stepdad? And I called him by his name, but is he my father? And she goes, no, so-and-so is absolutely not your father. And so she was just very firm about that. And I thought, okay, well, she goes, I don't know why anybody would say what they're saying. And I said, okay, well, I don't either, but I am extremely hurt by these couple of days. And we hung up and no more was said. So then, of course, I called my sister Diane and I said, I talked to her about DNA and how it all worked and Ancestry.com and 23andMe. And I just pondered it. I prayed about it for a couple of days. I'm like, I don't want to cause any waves, but I really want to know. Like, I just could not get what had been said out of my mind. And so finally she goes, I had more paternal matches at 23andMe than I did at Ancestry. And after I'd seen her Ancestry results, I was like, well, we already know what my mom's side is. And her dad and my dad wouldn't have been the same anyway. And so I was like, okay, I'll do 23andMe since you got more paternal matches from that. So that's what I did. I ordered my kit. It came, I spit in the tube. And that was around October. I don't remember the exact day, but I got the results back October 22nd of 2021. Like the rest of us, I opened it and I just looked. I had first cousin matches and their last names were somebody that I didn't even recognize at all. It was a brother and sister match that I both came back. So Hyacinth and Morgans, I don't even remember what they were. And then I seen a third cousin with the last name Caps. That didn't mean anything to me either. I didn't know. So I shared my results with my sister, and then I actually called my cousin Sandy because she, again, they live in that small town where my aunt was, my grandpa was, and where my mom had went to school. And I just said, don't call your mom, but see what you can find out with what I'm giving you. I said, well, my birth certificate father is not my dad. And here's my first cousins and those names. But the minute I said to her the third cousin's name, Caps, she goes, there's tons of Caps around here. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yes. And I said, okay. She goes, give me 30 minutes and I'll call you right back. I said, okay. Because I was driving home. I was driving back from Idaho. My daughter actually lives now in that small town area with everybody. And so she called me back within 30 minutes and she goes, you won't believe it. I love this kind of stuff. I found an obituary. And sure. And she goes, this is, Mrs. Caps. I'm not going to use her first name. And she has 4 sons and, blah, blah. She kind of broke it down for me. And I was like, wow, that's fast. But again, it's not confirmation. So then I reached out to my sister again and I said, how do you get on the search angels? I want them to do more digging. I want to know that I know before I say anything. To this point, I had not told my mom or my birth certificate dad that I was doing the testing. I joined the Search Angels on October 27th, and by November 2nd, they had had the results for me, and they mimicked exactly what my cousin had found in my grandma Caps's obituary. There were 4 brothers. One of them was the same age as my mom, one was a couple years younger, and then the 2 youngest ones. And so at some point along the way, I thought, oh, goodness, I better at least start informing my mom. I had already knew the results, but I emailed her or texted her something and said, I just want you to know I've done a DNA test. And, of course, she was defensive, citing that well, you'll tell the whole Facebook world. And she was just defensive. And so I just kept, leading her along. Okay, the test said they'll come, it'll be back. And again, I was not truthful in that, but I felt like I needed to give her time to prepare for the results that I already had. Mm-hmm. So I'd also reached out to the first cousins via social media. I found both of them. The girl cousin more on Facebook, and I found the boy cousin on Instagram, and emailed them both. And I emailed them actually on October 23rd and had gotten nothing back from either one of them. But the day that I got the search angel results, the next day, my cousin responded via Facebook. And so I knew that it was between probably the 2 older brothers. And so I'd narrowed it down to 2 men at that point. On November 3rd, I finally, after I talked to my cousin and gotten information from her too, about the family, because it's very big. They are a large, large family. My grandma had, I believe, 6 kids. And so there were a lot of aunts and uncles to boot, along with cousins. So I emailed my mom on November 3rd. And later that day, because we had kind of stopped talking, she'd gotten defensive, not really, but not as much as we had previously. So later that evening, I told her, I texted her and I said, check your email. And in my email that I drafted with her, I laid out what had happened. I took the DNA. I sent it to the search angels. There was 2 brothers with the possibility. And she responded back in the text, who are the 2 brothers? And I told her, and she responded back confirming that she had been with the oldest brother 1 time. Mind you, she was married to my birth certificate father, and my brother would have probably been about a year old when I was conceived. And so that's probably, there's a lot there, a lot to unpack for her, a lot to, admit that not only had she had the affair with my birth certificate stepfather that led to their divorce, but now there was another one that she was going to have to own up to. And she was defensive, as is most mothers. And And she told me that they had went, that her and my my birth father had went to high school. They'd been friends in high school, and then it was a long story. And I said, knowing that if I tried not to pressure her anymore, I just thanked her for being honest and told her that one day I'd love to hear the story. Then the cousin and I got to talking on and going through the timelines, and because I didn't know if I wanted to reach out. I mean, instantly I kind of do. I want to know this man. The cousin that I first reached out to that had given me my grandma Mary's, or sorry, my grandma Caps's obituary. She had also sent me a Facebook picture of who she thought was the one of the two brothers that was my dad. And so I had at least seen him. But the last thing I ever wanted to do was cause him any heartache. So with the cousin that's on his side of the family, we kind of worked out the timeline. He was not married at the time. He was not engaged at the time to be married. I think he had started dating. No, I do know now. Now I know that he had started dating his wife, who in a month will celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, which is amazing. And I'm so proud of them. That's very unheard of nowadays. And I'm just really super proud of that longevity that they have together. I got his number. The search angels, they give you a plethora of information. You get addresses a lot of times and phone numbers. And actually, out of the four brothers, my dad's was the only, my birth father, but I call him dad, to a selected crowd. I'm really careful of whom I'm around when I call him dad, but he is my dad. For a zillion reasons, he is my dad. And so I called one of his brothers, and I just, it's a small farming community. So you're like, hey, how are you? My name is Nikee. I'd like to get a hold of Dennis. Can I get his phone number from you? And I was prepared for some questions, but he didn't ask any. He's like, sure, here you go. I was super shocked. I was like, wow, that was way too easy. So I'm pretty bold and I'm outgoing and I'm forward. And actually, I've never felt unspecial. And, I'm very, people like me when they get to know me. I thought I just said something when I called him, I'm like, hi, my name is Nikee, my cousin so-and-so. And I'm just, would love to have a conversation with you. Give me a call back. And I texted him about that same thing. And then I did it again on the 5th. And I'm not very patient. I think I said that either in the phone call too, like, I'd love to hear from you. I'm not real patient. Sorry. I know I called yesterday, but here I am again. Sometime in there, between the 4th and probably the 7th, I decided I had drafted a letter too. And my letter, I included humor and facts and a plethora of different things, just a little bit about myself. And of course, mentioned my mom and they had went to high school today. And then once I delivered the news that I think that I'm your daughter, and I, encouraged him to go take a long walk. Having been through marital unfaithfulness myself, my son dying, being killed in Afghanistan, walking saved my life. There's times where you just got to go take a walk because everything else, and look at everything that's living and beautiful, and remind yourself that it's great to be alive and appreciate that, because grief is a formidable opponent. So on November 13th, my birth father texted me back after rereading the letter I sent. He was, very nice and to the point. And that was nervous, because you just don't know how people are going to take it or how they're going to feel. And, I felt everything for him. I didn't want him to be hurt or feel like I was after anything, really. I mean, I just wanted to know who he was. And then on November 15th, he called me, and that was a Monday. and he's like, hey, I have taken 2 days and I have a plan. I want to get a solid paternity test, and can you arrange that? And I remember I was panicking. I mean, here I'm getting orders from my dad. I'm very subservient in that way. When dad talks, let's go. Same way with the boss, oh, my boss is here. I want to, make them happy. So I called a couple places and found a place to do a DNA test. We scheduled it, and he was coming on Wednesday and 2 days later. And sure enough, he came and met me at a certain time, and I was so just excited to meet him. I was tense and nervous, and everything had happened so fast. I mean, it was just all within a couple of weeks. And here's this guy on my front porch, and we just embraced right from the get-go. I mean, he was a hugger. I'm a hugger. You never know. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like to hug. And we talked and visited, and I will cherish those 3 hours alone with him forever. We drove, it was about 45 minutes down to where we got tested, and our cheeks were swabbed. And 2 days later, the results came back, and it was 99.999%. And he was cute about it. When I texted him the results, he called me right away and he goes, well, looks like I have an older daughter. He was very receptive. He was nervous the day that he left. He said, I said, it's up to you. I have met you. I want to respect. I know this is difficult. I know that you weren't married or engaged, but he's like, I'm just not sure how my wife's going to take it. And I said, I get it, because anytime a woman in the realm of perfection, some women believe that when they marry a man, they're the first, they're the only, they're, whatever the case may be. And I didn't know anything about their relationship. I knew they were of the LDS faith, and that means a lot to people. And marriage is very, very sacred, and as it is with a lot of us, but it's just held in there's a sealing that's done. And I didn't know how she would take it, neither did he. And so I just said, well, honestly, I've met you. And if you decide not to tell your family, I thank you for doing this. I thank you for confirming, and, we can shake hands and hug and, because I don't want this to be a burden for you or a stress for you. I mean, I think at that time, 71 years old, and it's a lot. And he was like, well, I'm going to think on it, but I think I'm going to tell my family. And I'm like, okay, well, it's totally up to you. So he and I text back and forth, and he did tell his family. He owned it. It was stressful. His wife did react initially as if he had an affair yesterday. And she couldn't quite grasp, in the beginning, she couldn't quite grasp that it had happened so long ago. And it was just a shock. It turned their world upside down for a little while. Some of the kids, they have 6 beautiful children and lots of grandchildren. And some of my half brothers on their side were welcoming. And I had written a letter, one more letter, just explaining more about myself. And Dennis read that to them and handed them copies or something when he told them all, just so that they would know. I was prepared because I remember what it felt like when I found out, like, a real affair, how you feel, how you want to know the other woman, how you want to know all the details. You want to investigate. I mean, I remember very vividly how I felt when my second husband was unfaithful to me on numerous occasions. And so I think just having that background, I was more mentally prepared for how to direct the conversations. Like, I wasn't going to talk about my mom, because this had really nothing to do with her. I mean, this was about me. And I realized that event, my conception, involved other people, but that was 48 years ago at the time. And now it's been 51 years. So I'm still kind of adamant about that. I love my mom, and I wanted to protect her. the difficulty in that is, bless her heart, she just has she chooses to respond poorly. So she just was negative, and we have since stopped talking because she doesn't want to talk about it. And that's part of my life now. I don't think she's been to my house since it's happened. One time we met in Las Vegas, but it was a couple months for one of my granddaughter's cheer events. And it was awkward and it was new. And, there was like an elephant in the room with us. And because she just will not talk about it, she just wants, finally, about 4 months after I had told her, I finally pushed her and pushed her and pushed her a little bit more for the details about my conception and, just what happened and, where. And, and she wrote me a very small, cold, paragraph with not a lot of detail and said, "And I will never speak of this again, so don't ask," was the last sentence in the paragraph. So, okay, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. So now if we see each other, I did get together with her and my brother for Mother's Day, and we just don't talk about it. We pretend like it didn't happen, I guess. At least her and I don't. So that's kind of where my relationship stands with my mom at this point. I text her, love her, but I'm not. I realize something about myself is that I carry a lot of the relationship load. I love people. I love to text them. I love to tell them I love them. I love to tell them about my day. Something's going on with my kids, but I have found that I'm the one that does most of the reaching out, whether it was with my original birth certificate father or, anything. Even after my mom divorced my birth certificate stepfather, who adopted me, I was the one that reached out, and I'm the one that always tries to maintain the connection. And I'm just old enough now that I don't have to. I don't have to be the one that does that anymore. So if you want a relationship with me, by all means, reach out. So, and on the other side of the fence, it took about 4 months, and then my birth father's wife started to come around. I think her faith, I think the importance of family, I think her brother, helping her walk through and process emotions, and helped. In January of 2022, so that had been about 3 months after everybody on the CAPS side was told, one of the brothers, and the one that I'm closest to, invited me to a basketball game. His son they were having championships, and it was state tournament time, and the team was doing really well. And so I went down to the small town because, again, I'm down in that small town often. My daughter lives about 20 minutes in another small town from where the whole family was. And I'm down there, once or twice a month at minimum, just to see my own grandkids and to squeeze my daughter and give her big hugs and loves and help her with her house and do different things with her. So I went down for the basketball game, and it was tough. I mean, I cannot lie. While he was receptive, the oldest daughter wants nothing to do with me. She still hasn't even met me. And there's been opportunities because they did invite me to Father's Day in 2022. They have an annual 4th of July picnic at their house, and I went. And so it's been tough in that regard because there's only 2 brothers that are really, really welcoming. Right out of the gate, also, when they all were given my information, the youngest daughter started contacting me via Facebook Messenger. And it was interesting because she started out like she really wanted to get to know me. And I think there was some of that intent, but most of it was, I think, a searching means and method sent from her mother to find my mother. So I deflected all of that, and it finally came to just where we were not even friends on Facebook anymore. We differ politically, and I just told her, I'm like, I'm not sure what your intent is here, but let's let bygones be bygones. But when we see each other in person at the family thing, she's nice and friendly, and that's all I could ever ask or hope for. I mean, out of all of it, we're all adults at this point, and it's like, why don't you just, instead of pretending that I'm like this some long lost sister, why don't you just treat me like I'm someone new that you're just meeting for the first time? I mean, I'm not expecting, there's no way we can ever make up the gap in years that we all missed out, but you could at least treat me like I'm just a new person that you met on in a restaurant and say hi,
Yeah.
Uh, so we may not be best buds, but common civility seems like it could go pretty far. Especially, I mean, I have to give my birth father a lot of credit. He's endured a lot of anger and frustration, and his oldest daughter, even at one point, kind of tried to disown him, and it hurt him pretty bad. I think that a lot of the women in the family chose to act out of their own feelings. And I hope at some point, I think it's gotten a lot better now, but I just wished early on they would have been more step back and understand how he must be feeling. I think men don't get enough credit for their feelings, and they don't share them as much as women. So they get bombarded. And cast away, kind of, is what I feel. So it's definitely changed a lot of the dynamics in my life too. I was raised as a single child, and now I have 8 half siblings.
Oh my.
6 on the paternal side and 2 on the maternal side. So it's been interesting. And there's times where I'm okay with everything that happened. Once my birth father's wife started and I started communicating, we really started communicating, and bless their hearts. I mean, from the get-go, they had done a background check on me. They'd searched me in police records. I
Oh
mean,
wow. Oh wow.
she knew more about me than I probably did. I mean, she got out very in depth, her old annuals, and but she's also the one that she bought me books on what an MP was. She's the one that came across the MPE data and books, and she knew about face groups. She even is the one that told me about your podcast, Lily, and MPE stories. And she had listened to them in droves. I mean, I could do only about one a day, and she had the whole 2 years listened to very quickly. I think so I applaud everybody's actions. The wives, I understood how she felt. I get the feelings. I think some of the feelings probably needed to be sifted a little bit with reality, because he didn't have an affair on you while you were married. He didn't have an affair while you were engaged. You guys had started dating a little bit, and yeah, was he super proud of what happened? No. I asked my mom, on the other hand, it's like, you were married. You had a little bit more responsibility. At least I feel. She's like, well, it takes 2 to tango. Yeah, it does. But if he didn't know you were married, which he said he didn't, and he didn't know that, there's a level of responsibility that I think you had as a little bit more as a married woman. That being said, you're human, and I forgive you, and I love you, and I'm really glad I'm here. I'm really glad I'm alive. So those things are nice. At the same time, I get hurt a little bit. I lived for 12 years in that small town where my birth father lived, and all of my half siblings were born. And so I was there 12 years. That's where I had all 3 of my children, and I didn't even have a clue. So I could have passed them all in the store, And when my birth father's wife and I were talking, like I worked at my taco time, she goes, "Oh my gosh, me and the kids went through taco time all the time."
Oh.
She has cousins that I rodeoed with. She did sewing and stuff for a lot of the rodeo and queen contestants. And so there's common ground there, and so. But God has a plan. I think waiting as long as he did probably is a good thing based on her initial reaction to the whole thing. I think maybe if I would have been exposed anytime sooner, I don't know that, she reacted pretty heavily. She would say that time brings a lot of wisdom into a person's life. So
Which family member did all of the research? Was that your birth father's wife or one of the siblings?
my birth father's wife. Yeah.
So she even knew what the term NPE was?
Yes. Yep.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
rare. Oh, that's
It is very
okay.
rare. And she put in the work. I mean, I give her credit as she was trying to process her feelings but she, like any woman that has felt like they've been betrayed, she got out old annuals and yearbooks. She pieced together. She went back to 1972.
Mm,
I mean, and she shared she shared all of that with me. We would email story after story, and because I'd been through 7 years of marital counseling with my second husband, I mean, I felt like I was really skilled, and we both are faith based, so we had a lot of things in common that could bring us together, even as difficult as it was. But yeah, she's the one that bought me my first two MPE books, and she found a wife's group to be part of, and yeah, it was nice to be able to work through those emotions with her. I just think, you know, it was a little bit harder maybe than I had hoped it would be. But their feelings were important. And that's why I told her, even about her daughters, it's okay that they feel the way they do. It's unfortunate because I do think I'm friendly and I'm confident and I'd love just to love people. But again, my love capacity, they say you only have 3 close friends in life, and, the other 12 are associates or something.
mhm.
So you only have time for so many, but I don't compete with women anymore. I think that's one thing that I learned it was a huge lesson when when my second husband was unfaithful. I always felt like I was competing with the women that he were with. And I just love women anymore. I'm not going to compete with
Mhm.
another woman ever again, not as a place in a daughter, not in a marriage, nothing. I just
Yeah.
won't do it. I'm going to love them. I'm going to support them. You can like me or not like me. I'm okay with that. Whatever you choose.
I have a question. You may have said this, but about okay, let me get this terminology right. It would have been who you thought I guess it would have been your BCF, the original
Mhm.
BCF.
Yeah.
Does he does he know and your brother know?
Well,
And
yes, so when it did happen, because again, he's the one that said, I don't think you are entitled to the inheritance. I don't think, that you're entitled to as much as my
Mhm.
brother, blah, blah,
Which
blah.
is so unfair, but yes.
Yeah, it was a little something. But when all of this happened, then I actually wrote the county and I got my adoption records because I wanted to know the timing of everything, because I didn't even know that my mom had gotten remarried, how soon my mom had gotten remarried after I was born. I said January 23, and by March of 74, she was remarried to my birth certificate stepfather. And I say that because, again, then the birth certificate father gave me up for adoption. So in my frustrations, I got that paperwork and I just sent it to him. And I said, this right here, when I was 10, you decided whether or not I was entitled to your inheritance. You gave me away. And adoption papers are very clear. You have no legal right to everything. And in some ways I had never seen the adoption papers. Nobody had ever given me a copy. All I knew was the story and that another man was on my birth certificate. And so that, I don't know. It just sat wrong with me. I read a lot of the MPEs that want to go and get their birth certificate changed. I'm not going to do that. I think that's a lot of work and legal. And I would not even propose that to my birth father now, because, ugh, goodness. I'm not sure how the family would respond to that nonsense. But I did go get a tattoo. I used my grandma Caps's handwriting, and I put established in 2021, and so I have a tattoo of his name on my wrist. And of course, when my mom found out, she's like, "You don't do that for me." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Mom, you're on my birth certificate.
Oh, that's what a neat idea. You were able to use the handwriting to honor that side of the family.
Yeah.
That's a good
Well,
idea.
my birth father's wife, oh my goodness, once she got on board and we were talking and we share a lot. So next thing I know, I have stacks of, I mean, she brought me stacks of her kids' photos when they were little. She brought me stacks. I mean, my dad's mom and dad, they hand wrote like their life stories, and one of them typed them. So she brought me all of that. I learned, where they were from, things about their faith, how they grew up, read stories about them. I mean, it was phenomenal. I as tough as it's been on her, and I hope deep down she hasn't been too hard on my birth father, because he's such a good man. I mean, he's such a good family man, and he loves all of his kids, and that includes me. And he's made that very, very abundantly clear to anyone. And again, they're very well known and prominent couple in a very small community, and so I do understand how this reflects on them. But she's been great. I have to give her a lot of credit for her support, even through processing her own emotions. She has thought a lot about me. She got me, sat down with my aunt and went through, health stuff, because as she read all these books about MPEs, she really began to understand what they were going through. And so while she was going through what she also wanted, to help me as best she could too. So that was really sweet and has continued to be sweet. I love them. They're great people.
Oh, I love to hear it.
Yeah.
I'll put in as a resource for this episode the DNA Angels link as well. The Search Angels that will, for free, they're 501c3. Is that how it's called? That when a nonprofit organization they will help people find their birth parents for free, adoptees, NPEs, donor conceived persons. And if you want to even find additional family members, they'll do it for a small fee. And they, of course, will always accept donations. But I'll put them as a resource, since they were able to assist you and your sister.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's wonderful. I went to a dinner with them a couple months ago, and while we were sitting in a 2-hour dinner, they had 6 well, I don't know if they're NPs or adoptees, 6 people submit requests for searches just in like a 2-hour time frame. It's a lot of work.
I see a lot of submissions. My heart goes out. I mean, it's just been amazing. I think you guys are doing such a great thing on Right to Know too. Here's the thing with me, and it's good, bad, or I love how it's kind of, for you, this has become something that you're just super involved in. The same holds true with, like, at the TAPS organization when my son was killed. Some of those moms and wives, they get so involved, like that becomes part of just their life and everything that they do. And I'm just not there. I'll support them and do little things, but I just can't stay in either of those places,
Oh yeah.
for too long.
It gets a lot, because once you commit to a service project, but then all of a sudden emotionally you're like, I need to take a step back for a month. Well, that's hard to do. So
it is hard.
Yep, I completely get it. I get it
So I'm
completely.
just like, I can't get all the way in,
Yes.
But I do like the Right to Know, because even for my sister, I would like to see the adoption records be at a certain time that the states can release them to them. Because I was able to get mine because it was like a half adoption. It wasn't, a full adoption. So the record wasn't sealed. So it was just a legal transaction between 2 private citizens, but it's not like a full on adoption. So my records weren't sealed, but there's still information that she would like to know.
Of course.
And
I will put in their link below as well. Right to Know is working on advocacy work right now with every state legally, trying to get birth certificates unsealed and available to people. That's
wonderful.
okay. Well, remind me, Nikee, if people wanted to contact you, you said yes, you were available to do that, correct? Okay. All right. What is the best way for them to contact you?
My email address is Kramer, Kramer, .Nikee, Nikee, @yahoo.com.
I will put in your email address below in the episode notes. Oh, Nikee, thank you so much for waiting, and then today taking time out of your schedule to share your story today. I appreciate it so much.
I appreciate you too, Lily.
These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.